that we buy those covers for the taps outside.
Right.
But up there, you got to worry about, you've got to keep water running in your, your bathroom sink and all that sort of thing, doing everything that you can. Because I've gone through also frozen pipes, and that's a mess.
Oh, yeah. It's not, you don't find out until the weather begins to warm up.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the problem is that, like here down in the South, where our flagship station is for our radio network, pipes they're not buried as deeply as they are up north. Mm-hmm. And so the problem is when you have extended numbers of days of freezing temperatures, especially if it doesn't warm above freezing during the day, is that freeze level drops in the ground and can reach your pipes. And but anyway,
that's why you better. That's why you better cover them.
Right.
Even your water faucets outside and things like that. If it gets, of course, again, we're talking about people who live maybe, as you say, in the warmer climates.
Right.
But folks in the north, they build their houses differently.
Yes.
Yeah. For that reason.
And the other thing, and we talked about this a little bit in our story meeting, you've got all these migrants now that are living in tents in places like Chicago,
right,
and Denver,
Minneapolis,
and New York, and Minneapolis. What are those cities going to do for these folks?
Right.
I mean, this is.
It gets dangerous at that point.
Yes,
we're not talking about people not being comfortable at night. We're talking about they can freeze to death.
Oh, right. My goodness. So we'll be watching this, but do what you can. But as I say, for those cities that have been taking all these migrants in, I'm going to be anxious to see. They have to act today. They have got to do something with these people today.
When does this polar vortex begin to drop down into the lower 48? Do you know?
Well, it'll be the next 48 hours.
Next 48. Okay.
Yes, and perhaps even it depends on how long this thing hangs around.
Right.
Because the Northeast got a bit of a snowstorm this weekend. They're used to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now you've got this on top of everything.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we will.
Thank you, meteorologist Jackson.
Yes. Yeah, he was in the story meeting. I did not know about the possibility of tornadoes down here.
Yes.
So I was very thankful that Fred could cause me worry for the next 48 hours. But you know how these Canadians are.
I try. Equal opportunity stress.
That's right. That's right. All right.
The other, and this is a bizarre story, and maybe some of our folks have heard of this. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, back on December 22nd, apparently went into hospital for a medical procedure. He went home a day later, but has been in the hospital now since January 1st. He had to go back in, admitted to intensive care. The bizarre part about this, we're just finding out about it, and apparently the White House, just in recent days, just found out about it. And everybody's has got their hands up in the air saying, wait a minute, you mean the President of the United States did not know, especially at this time of what's going on in the world and where we have American forces, we're talking like the Middle East, that the President of the United States did not know that the boss over our military was in an intensive care unit at a hospital. It is absolutely crazy what's going on. Joe Concha is one of those contributors on Fox and Friends. He had this to say this morning about all of this. Cut number 7.
Right now, Joe Biden, as we speak, is in Delaware again this morning, where he is most of his presidency, it feels like, right? Something like 138 days this president has spent on vacation last year in 2023. Here's what I know. Secretary Austin needs to resign immediately. This is beyond unacceptable because our enemies like China and Iran are watching this and seeing this non-disclosure for what it is, a dereliction of duty that once again shows this administration is not a serious one at a perilous time in world history, given the state of affairs right now, as we're seeing in the Middle East, as we're seeing in Ukraine, as we're seeing with China and its aggression towards Taiwan and so on.
I just don't know how this happens, how the chief military officer in the United States of America is in an intensive care unit at a hospital. By the way, he's still in the hospital. The Pentagon doesn't think it has an obligation to tell the president that Lloyd Austin is in an intensive care unit. And by the way, who's in charge when he's not there? I mean, this is, I've never heard of this happening before.
Well, that's the bizarre part of this story. There have been other times when high-ranking government officials have had to go to, for procedures. Sometimes even the president or a vice president has to have procedures. And the reason why you let people know is you have to make sure the chain of command is intact and somebody is available to make decisions. Mm-hmm. So my understanding is if a president or even a vice president is going to be put under anesthesia for some sort of procedure, the government has to know.
Yes.
They have to know that person for X number of hours is going to be incapacitated. But what's so strange about this is that the president was not aware. Now, Fred, as far as you know, and I know we're still trying to catch up to how this happened, did members of the Biden administration, the White House, know and just choose not to tell the president, or was the entire White House staff kept in the dark? Anybody know?
I cannot answer that question at this time. But both Republicans and Democrats on the Hill are demanding an investigation.
Yeah.
Even if so, what if somebody in the White House knew about this?
Right.
Did Antony Blinken know about this? The Secretary of State?
Yeah.
His chief of staff not know about this and not tell the president? I mean, it just all sounds really bizarre.
Yeah, it does. So there needs to be. Now, I tell you what, guys. I think I have the utmost confidence in Karine Jean-Pierre. And today she will make that perfectly clear what happened. Are you guys with me on this one?
Oh, we're with you. We know exactly where you're going with this.
Right. She'll probably be asked that first question, then she'll close her binder and say thank you for coming and walk out of the room. That's what she did about 2 weeks ago when she was asked a hard question. We'll see what the answer is from the White House, but if the Secretary of Defense, if he didn't notify the White House, that's a cabinet level position.
Right.
Yes.
We're in a situation around the world where we're kind of on heightened alert. I'm talking about the U.S. military, and if he didn't let the commander in chief know he was going to be hospitalized, that's fireable.
I think so too.
Well,
dereliction of duty.
Well, if I was a betting man, I would say Karine Jean-Pierre is not going to go to the podium today. John Kirby, you're going to go out there.
There's a rumor that John Kirby, he's a national...
he's National Security Council's spokesman.
Yeah. Yes.
That he and Karine Jean-Pierre have been at odds the last few days.
Yes.
That's widely reported.
Yeah, there is friction.
Yeah, I think probably because John Kirby is competent, and he has to clean up her messes.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what the White House says about that today. But that's one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard regarding a cabinet level position in the United States, where the commander in chief, as I say, Biden, the president, doesn't even know, isn't made aware that his Secretary of Defense is in a hospital, and it was not just one day. I think it was several days. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all right. Well, next story, Fred.
Yeah, just one more element in that story. We don't know what's wrong with the Secretary of Defense.
Right.
Nobody is saying, but obviously it's serious if he's in an ICU unit. We'll find out. Well, we do know where the Homeland Security Secretary is today, Alejandro Mayorkas. He's on his way to the border. He's going down to Eagle Pass, and I bet you'll hold a news conference and say everything's okay here.
Yeah, everything's peachy.
not have to worry about this, and they're going to try to impeach me this week up there in the House, but it's ridiculous because everything is okay here. Well,
if the Republicans did have even 10, probably 15 number majority, which they don't, they would probably impeach him. At least the House would, because if anybody ever deserved it, this guy does.
Right.
He's in charge. He's a National Homeland Security guy, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Homeland Security Secretary.
That's
He is.
right.
And he you talk about he's a walking gaslight. I mean, huh? I mean, every day if he's asked about it, he's talking about the border being under control when the whole world knows that's not true by any stretch of the imagination. And so, and he hasn't done anything to try to improve the situation. He just, I don't know. You guys ever think anything quite like it?
No, and I'll tell you something else. It's not just the fact that the border is not secure. He's the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Right.
Do we feel like the homeland is secure under this guy?
Nobody does.
Christopher
Even
Wray,
Democrats.
the FBI director, remember just weeks
Yes.
before Christmas,
Yes.
said, "Listen, red flags going off all over the place." I mean, my belief and the expectation, I think, of a lot of people, of actual experts, not me, but they expect some sort of terrorist attack
Yes.
this year.
Yeah.
We're wondering how we've escaped, and this is on Mayorkas and the president. He's the Secretary of Homeland Security. I feel less secure than I have maybe since 9/11.
There's no point in hearing it from him anymore.
No.
On anything. He doesn't have his answers are not true at all. Every day, all day, with regard to the border, and so he just, as I mentioned here before, the Democrats answered, because you'll hear this, you'll hear this from the White House and others. Their answer to this millions of people coming in here illegally is that the Republicans have thwarted quote comprehensive immigration reform. And okay, when you hear that, that's when bells ought to go off right there, because when Democrats say comprehensive immigration reform, what they mean is legalizing, giving a pathway to citizenship, as they call it, to all the people who've come here illegally and are continuing to come here illegally. That's all they mean, is speeding up the process of making these folks legal so that they can vote Democrat.
Yep.
That's their goal and objective. But they'll say, you'll hear Karine Jean-Pierre say that every day, well, the Republicans have, the president has put forth a comprehensive immigration reform bill, and they won't vote on it, or they won't take it up. And that's what she's talking about.
Yep.
So, anyway.
This morning I was watching Fox and Friends, and they had a reporter down on the border. They did a live shot, and live on camera, we saw a young man from Honduras climbing through the razor wire, coming over. And he told the reporter through a translator a bit later that he had paid the cartels between $20,000 and $30,000 to help him get across the border. Now,
That's unbelievable.
and he's claiming
These
asylum.
Supposed to be poor
So
people.
where does he get $20,000 or $30,000 if he's having such a terrible time in Honduras that he says he has to go north and claim asylum? It just doesn't come together.
Right.
Hey, how long do we have before the break?
We probably have 2 minutes.
Okay. I wanted to play Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who's obviously running on the Republican side. He had an interesting idea about how to deal with this illegal immigration situation, and I didn't know whether we had time to play that.
We do.
We do have time to play that?
We can, and if we have to, we can move.
It's
the break
33
a little
seconds.
bit.
We have time.
Yeah, we got time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
As president, I am going to deputize state and localities. And you're right about that Arizona case. I actually think the Supreme Court would reevaluate that today, especially in light of what we've seen. But as president, I am going to say state and localities have the authority to enforce immigration laws as long as they're upholding the law. It's one thing if a state was trying to frustrate the law. Of course, under the Supremacy Clause, they couldn't do that. But that's not what we have here. It's the federal government that's frustrating the imposition, the enforcement of the law. It's the states that just want the law enforced.
Yeah, so I'd not heard that idea of deputizing, maybe you guys had, of deputizing local and state officials to enforce immigration law.
Yeah, which is what Texas is trying to do.
Well, and we used to have a system that was close to that. It wasn't exactly like being deputized by the federal government, but state and local law enforcement officials would hold illegal immigrants if they had been caught in the in the commission of a different crime, even if they were caught speeding.
Yeah,
they would hold them for the feds to come down and get them, and then those individuals will be brought into the system, the ICE system, or before that it was INS or whatever. So it wasn't quite that, but that's an interesting proposition on the part of Ron DeSantis. You increase the number of people that are on the lookout for people crossing that border. You do some additional things. You finish the wall. You have more, you hire more people down there. You you wait in Mexico if you want to ask for asylum. And as I've said,
listen,
pay Mexico to enforce their southern border to help us out.
I got to be careful how I say this, but you got to almost treat this like a military invasion.
of course.
I know these people aren't combatants, so to speak. They don't have weapons when they come under here trying to fire at our border agents. But in order to stop the flow, you've got to beef up a military-style presence to deter people from coming here illegally. By the millions they've come since Biden has been in the White House. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
All of us have at some time in our life faced disappointment. We know something of the experience that an old man told, which happened to him when he was a small boy. Yes, the old man said, I've had some mighty big disappointments in life. But the biggest disappointment I ever had was when I crawled under a big tent when I was but a small boy. But somebody nearby, listening, wondered what his disappointment was. So they asked him what happened. Well, the old man replied, I thought it was a circus tent. But after I got inside, I discovered it was a revival meeting. You can imagine the disappointment he suffered. Disappointment can be and often is defeating. John Keats called it the parent of despair, but it need not be. It was Abe Lincoln who said, if the good people in their wisdom shall see fit to keep me in the background, I have been too familiar with disappointments to be very much upset. Life teaches us early that the only person who will never be disappointed is the one who never expects. It was Alexander Pope who wrote, Blessed is he who expects nothing, for he shall never be disappointed. If a person is to ever make a go of life, that person must learn to overcome disappointment. For in any struggle there are bound to be setbacks which will try our endurance. I said disappointment is often defeating, but it need not be. Disappointment can give us new resolve to press on if we will only let it. The carpenter suffered disappointment, you know. Time and time again he saw some dream vanish down the drain, but he never let his disappointment hinder him in the process of going toward his goal. In each disappointment he always gathered new strength from his Father to press on. And remember that the Father is the best source of strength for us when we face disappointment also. For he is familiar with it, has suffered because of it down through the centuries. So don't give up if disappointment happens to be your lot occasionally. Rain must always fall before the flowers can bloom, and winter is always followed by the spring. Expect disappointment to be a part of life. Face it with a positive attitude and keep on keeping on. Life simply cannot defeat a person who has about him an iron will, a desire to reach his goal in spite of disappointments which may come his way. There will be, no doubt, many tents we'll crawl under expecting to find a circus, only to find a revival meeting in progress. But who knows? The next time you crawl under the big tent, a circus indeed may be in progress. And even if it isn't, and you again find a revival underway, remember that it's better to be inspired than it is to be entertained.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
As it is written, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. 1 Corinthians 2, verse 9.
American Family Radio.
This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. This is a live radio program we do Monday through Friday right here on AFR from 10:05 Central Time to 11:30. We thank you for joining us as we try to cover the news events that have happened in the last 24, 48 hours and what might be happening today and tomorrow. That's why we call it Today's Issues. Hey, by the way, we've got our 2024 tours scheduled, Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon, as well as we're going to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. So if those kinds of American history tours interest you, we call them spiritual heritage tours because we cover, obviously, God's hand on our early American history and our history in general all throughout the tour with our historian, Stephen McDowell, president of the Providence Foundation. He and I have been doing these tours together for over 20 years. And so if you want to look into going with us this year in June or September, nice weather months, to see that part of the country, June and September, all you need to do, the cost, the itinerary, what we'll be doing, everything you need to know about those tours are at this website, spiritualheritagetours.com. Spiritualheritagetours with an S.com is the website. Check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. Well, joining me is Ed Vitagliano and Fred Jackson in studio in Tupelo. I'm remote today, and again, we thank you so much for listening to American Family Radio and for listening to this particular program. Guys, we were talking as we do daily about the border situation here in the U.S. and the crisis that has been and remains. It's interesting that I saw a news report that among the American general public, not just Republicans, but among the American general public, this story now is like top 3. Mm-hmm. Okay, it is garnering the attention, and the Democrats are worried that it will hurt them in the November election. I'm talking about presidential, governors, all across the board. And if you look at we've talked here about the Democrat mayors in these big cities, Chicago, New York, Denver, and other places are being, they're saying we can't take any more people coming here. We can't house them. We can't take. Of course, they remain sanctuary cities, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a contradiction. But they're saying we can't house these people. We can't take care of them. It's killing our budget. What they're wanting, namely, is they want a handout from the federal government. They want a lot of money from the federal government. They're not even getting that. And Biden will hardly even give them the time of day. It's really odd because these are his people. These are his voters. I'm talking about Democrats. and Biden, and he won't even give them the time of day. Mayor Adams, for example, from New York, he's pleaded. But now I think Mayor Adams has got a lawsuit or against the governor of Texas. I believe I'm right about that. Do you guys know about this?
Well, he's what he's trying to do is bring in laws, and I think the same thing is probably happening in Chicago.
But they want to. What I'm saying is these Democrat mayors, they want to blame the Republican governors.
Yes.
For illegal immigration when it's the job of the federal government, as Governor DeSantis just mentioned a few minutes ago, to control our border.
Yes.
And so they don't want to blame him. You see what I'm saying? Where the blame actually goes. John Fetterman, the Pennsylvania Democrat, who was elected last year, or the year before. He's even being openly critical.
That's strange too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been a
He
strange
says, well, there is a crisis on the border. That's what he's talking about. Go ahead.
Yes.
Ed.
No, I was going to
What's
say
strange?
that adds to the strangeness of this. And the Justice Department did file a lawsuit against Texas. This was back, I think it was last week. But the state of Texas, it was going to implement a new immigration law allowing state and local officials to arrest people and to prosecute people who have entered the country illegally into Texas. I think they also put razor wire in the middle of the Rio Grande. I mean, there's a desperation on the border for some of these states that is becoming apparent. It's not just it's not just cities like New York and Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson there, I think that's the mayor's name in Chicago, and I think the reason why this is creeping up in the minds of voters is because these big cities are awash in illegal immigrants, and everybody notices it. And so everyone's talking about it, and that moves it up in terms of concern.
And there are mistruths being told by the media about how this is working. You referenced Mayor Adams of New York City. What he has put in place, he wants to stop the buses that are coming from Texas, but we have to remind people, Texas is not putting people on buses and telling them where to go.
Right.
Or against their will.
Is asked. They are being asked, what city you want to go to?
Right.
Chicago, New York, Denver, San Francisco.
They want to go where they're going to be be taken care of.
Exactly.
Sheltered and given food and everything else. And,
Exactly.
Gavin Newsom.
Yes.
Governor of California just said, y'all come. We got free health care for you.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, when you offer those kinds of incentives, where do you think they're going to want to go?
If you're sick in El Salvador or Honduras and you need access to high quality Western style health care, where are you going to go? You go to California.
Yeah.
Go to California. I'm just saying, I'm not against humanitarian aid and treating people with respect in terms of these are human beings, but at the same time, you at a policy level for the government, when you incentivize people coming here illegally, that's what you're going to get.
Yes.
And that's human nature. That's a no-brainer.
And Joe Biden wanted
the
this.
The Democrats have.
Joe Biden wanted this. We got to go back to 2020. What did Joe Biden say? If I'm elected, I will invite a surge to our southern border.
Yeah, and you remember all the Democrat candidates, at that debate raised their hands when they said, do you believe in free health care for anybody who comes here to the U.S.? And they said, bring them on.
Up
we'll
to
pay for
10,000 migrants are crossing the southern border every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And to your point, Fred, I don't know what's happening on the northern border, but there are people coming across as well.
There's been a huge jump there, too.
Huge jump there.
Yeah.
They're not going to be coming the next few days.
No.
Because of that polar vortex. Maybe we need a polar vortex on the southern border.
Yeah.
See what you can do
All right.
about that, Fred.
Yeah.
Next story, Fred.
1 week from today. 1 week from today, the Iowa caucuses. And
It's going to be frigid there, too. I saw a projection of the temperatures in Iowa on caucus night. It was like 0 or 2 degrees above Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
So
those
you're only gonna have
Iowans
your-
pretty tough.
they're pretty
You're
hard.
going to have your most loyal. I know Iowans are hardy, but you're going to have your most loyal people come
That's
out
true.
for the caucus.
You're not going to have some of those
on the fence.
sunshine patriots that Thomas Paine talked about.
Yeah.
Right.
Common sense.
So we're going to have a lot of politics on TV over the next few days. It starts tonight. Fox has got a town hall with Nikki Haley tonight at 5 o'clock Central. Tomorrow night, it's DeSantis at 5 o'clock Central. And then on Wednesday night, it is former President Trump. That's at 8 o'clock Central on Fox. But over on CNN on Wednesday night, you've got a debate between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. Trump, shouldn't be surprised, has decided not to go to that particular debate. So you're going to see a lot from these candidates. Polling right now, this morning, the latest polling I saw, former President Trump, 52%, and I think DeSantis, 18%. This is Iowa, and Nikki Haley, 16%. Now, apparently the former president is passing around a rumor that Governor DeSantis of Florida, if he doesn't win Iowa, will drop out. Well, the Governor DeSantis responded to that this morning, cut number 13.
It's a lie, totally made up. And when people fabricate these anonymous sources and do it, why he's saying that is because he wants people to somehow think, why should I go in negative 20-degree weather to help? No, you should show up because we're the one that can get the job done for this country. But that report is categorically false.
Well, listen, President Trump, former President Trump has been saying that DeSantis was going to drop out for months now. So he just says it, and he's going to be right sometime. I guess, he keeps predicting it. And who knows what will happen. I do think a lot of pressure is on Governor DeSantis in Iowa. He's put all his eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
He's traveled to every single county DeSantis has. He's got the backing of the governor, very popular Governor Reynolds. Bob Vanderplatz, who's been on with us, is he's one of the faith leaders in maybe the most well-known especially among evangelical voters. He is backing Governor DeSantis. And so Steve Dace, who's been on our program before, he's very well known in Iowa. He too is backing the governor of Florida in the primary. It's not a primary, it's a caucus. Here's why I don't necessarily think those polls are that relative here. I think polls are relevant, and polling can be helpful in understanding the situation, and they may prove to be right here in Iowa. That is, that Trump has a big lead, but a primary poll, a vote, is different than a caucus. So I don't know how exactly you measure who's going to come out on that night, and who's going to have their folks come out for them. If you did a survey of Republican voters in Iowa, Trump may show a big lead, but that doesn't mean anything necessarily when it comes to who goes to a caucus on a frigid night in Iowa to support their candidate. You see what I'm saying there?
Right. Let me ask you guys a question. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. It's a hypothetical. Let's say Ron DeSantis wins the Iowa caucus.
Mm-hmm.
President Trump wins New Hampshire, and Nikki Haley wins South Carolina. All right. Do you think at that point that Trump will begin participating in the debates?
Trump will become unhinged.
if he loses 2 out of 3?
Like you've never seen it before. If he loses South Carolina, and Nikki Haley is polling second there, if you believe the polls, and I don't know who's going to win New Hampshire. I guess President Trump is polling ahead. But you're saying if DeSantis wins Iowa,
and Nikki Haley wins South
first
Carolina,
of all,
Trump wins New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You think he would at that point begin
Trump is going to say that DeSantis stole Iowa. He's already said that. He's already said that They're getting ready. Remember him saying about a week ago that he said that Trump, I'm talking about, folks, listen, some people get upset when I criticize President Trump. I try to be fair about this. I'm only saying what he says.
Right.
Okay? I'm not trying to pile on a guy who's unfair. Trump said about a week ago that his folks needed to come out in Iowa because, quote, the other side cheats. He wasn't talking about Democrats. He was talking about in a primary or in a caucus. And he accused Ted Cruz, when Ted Cruz won Iowa, of stealing Iowa. Remember that?
Right. Because Ted Cruz won Iowa.
So if DeSantis somehow wins Iowa, Trump's going to say he cheated. So I'd get ready for that one.
Yeah.
Now, New Hampshire, South Carolina, I think all the pressure is on Nikki Haley.
Yes.
The former governor there.
Yeah.
Huh? Mm-hmm. She's got to win her own home state. Listen, I think, Trump is heavily favored to win the Republican nomination. And the pressure is on DeSantis to win Iowa. The pressure is on Haley to win South Carolina. That's just to stay viable for the next week or two. Mm-hmm. They've still got those two still have a big hill to climb, and they would prefer the DeSantis and Haley obviously would prefer that they were the only ones challenging the former president.
Right.
But anyway, we'll see what happens. But when is that vote, Fred?
The Iowa caucuses are a week from today.
The 15th.
Yeah, a week from today it's going to happen. Nikki Haley running into a bit of a problem with some of the things she's been saying lately. She said Iowa starts at you change personalities, you go into New Hampshire. People are trying to figure out, what do you mean? You just placate people in Iowa and then you move on to New Hampshire?
What did she say?
She says Iowa starts it. You change personalities, you go into New Hampshire, end quote.
Well, to give her the benefit of the doubt, she's probably saying you got two different kinds of people, two different kinds of voters. You got Midwestern, more conservative folks in Iowa. I think that would be true. The evangelical voters in Iowa make up a big percentage of the Republican base. Then you go to New Hampshire, they don't even go to church there. You got old historic churches.
When we lived there, we didn't go.
I'm just different type of people. They're more. I guess they're more liberal or more libertarian Republicans, you could say. So and in New Hampshire, Nikki Haley has the backing of former Governor Sununu, who's a very popular Republican there.
Yep.
So
and by the way, the New Hampshire primary is a week and a day after the Iowa caucus.
Yep.
So these things they're gonna run pretty rapidly. They're gonna start to unspool. We're gonna find out a lot within just over a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and CNN will have another debate with DeSantis again and Nikki Haley. So CNN is going to double its audience.
That's this Wednesday, right?
Well, but they have another debate after Iowa, before New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So CNN is going to double their audience. They're going to have 10 people watching on those Wednesday evenings. That's what I think of CNN.
And Ramaswamy, Vivek Ramaswamy, see, I did get to say it.
You got it.
He is not qualified for the CNN debate on Wednesday.
That's right.
What about the New Hampshire debate, the one prior to the New Hampshire? Is he in
They have CNN has put the same criteria in.
Okay.
You have to have at least 10% in your polling and all that sort of thing.
Listen, Vivek Ramaswamy has, for all practical purposes, he's dropped out because he's not polling. He's not close to DeSantis or Nikki Haley,
right?
In terms of his numbers and their numbers right now aren't close to Trump. So Vivek Ramaswamy, I like him. Mm-hmm. He's been on Jenna Ellis's show. I've heard him speak. I like him.
He's got a lot of really good conservative principles.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's never held any kind of elected office hurts him.
Right.
He's younger. He's unknown. He was unknown, relatively unknown.
Right.
So I think that hurts him. And so I don't know why he ran.
Well,
Really.
Let me just say this. I just from what I've read and what I've heard, first of all, he's a billionaire. So you're a billionaire, you can do whatever you want.
Duly noted, Ed.
Yeah, you don't have to think about, well, what happens? You don't have to,
Right.
wring your hands. What happens if I try this and I don't win? So
Right.
he's a billionaire. He can do whatever he wants.
You're going to
start
make
new
his
business.
house note.
He's going to make his house note. But I think he really does love this country. He really does have a good understanding of the fact that we've gone off the rails. He has some good ideas about how to fix it. But to your point, Tim, this is not the kind of election. We are not in the days in our history where you want to roll the dice on a rookie when it comes to politics. And that works against him, too. There are people who say President Trump was president for 4 years. Ron DeSantis, excellent governor. Nikki Haley, she was a governor. She was, United Nations
Secretary.
represent. So those are people who you go, okay, those people all have some political chops. I like Vivek Ramaswamy. I like saying his name, but I'm not going to gamble with a younger guy who's never been in office.
Yeah. Well, we all know what the Republican candidate, whoever that eventually is, what the issues they're going to run on. It's going to be the border. It's going to be the economy, et cetera, et cetera. We got a taste of what President Joe Biden, what his campaign platform was. He gave a 30-minute speech on Friday. A lot of people called it a strong speech, but really, it appears he's going to base his campaign on addressing what he sees as the dangers of a Donald Trump and the MAGA crowd. And today, he is going to be at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. That was, of course, the scene in 2015 when a white man went in there and killed 9 churchgoers at that black church.
He was a true white supremacist, this guy. And
Yes.
he was motivated racially
Dylan Roof.
against black folks, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was how long ago?
That was 2015, I think,
2015
in the summer.
when that happened. But he's going there.
What's Biden going to do? He's going to go to the church?
Well, I think he's going to continue the campaign. He's going to give a speech there. He's going to continue what he said on Friday, that if you elect Donald Trump to be president once again, that this country is going to be run from a racist mentality that will have no respect for democracy. Remember the whole threat to democracy line. Mm-hmm. So we're going to hear more of that. I don't think Joe Biden's going to talk about how great the economy is or, gee, we got that border under control. So what else? And by the way, I don't think he's going to have much to say about the state of military affairs around the world right now. So this is all he's got.
Right.
And we're going to hear this stump speech over and over and over again.
Well, first
Are we
of
about
all,
to hear part of it now?
No, we will hear.
That's so disappointing.
I'm sorry.
You don't have a clip?
I do not have a clip of Mr. Biden.
Well, listen. So he's going to South Carolina. Biden is to this church.
Yes.
Where what was it? What was Dylan's?
Dylan Roof, ROOF.
So everybody remembers that story. He went into the church in South Carolina, and he was a white supremacist fellow, right?
Yes.
And he killed people because they were black in the church.
He
right?
sat in a Bible study.
Yes.
Even admitted later that I realized these people were not bad people, but then did it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, that guy, that's horrible. And was he executed or was he in? Is he now?
Oh, I don't think so, but I'll have to check.
Anyway,
he's probably
we don't execute people in America anymore.
I'll say this.
Here's
That was
the thing.
2015. That was before Donald Trump.
Yeah, this is shameful pandering. And race division is all this is. That's Biden's trying to say, hey, non-white, especially black folks, it's time to vote for me because, man, you vote for Republicans, especially Trump, you're gonna experience this kind of thing again.
He is currently serving time on death row.
Yeah.
In South Carolina.
I think everybody sees that for what it is. I think everybody does. I think, Fred, I agree with you. I think it's a ridiculous campaign issue. Listen, there are good and bad people of all colors all over America. I don't know why we have to continue. The black people, there are black criminals that kill white people every day of the year. We'll see every day. So are we supposed to go as a Republican supposed to go have a rally about that? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's just stoking division along racial lines.
Right.
Quite frankly, I'm trying to be objective about this. Donald Trump did not stoke divisions among racial lines. Now, he made some, I guess Abraham Hamilton III told me he made an unforced error in that Charlottesville, Virginia comment. Mm. You remember that incident? But he didn't really, over his career, Donald Trump hasn't made racial comments that I'm aware of. Or even before he was a candidate, nobody accused him of being a racist. So is he divisive? Yeah, he's divisive in many ways, Donald Trump. But racially, it's just hard to put your finger on anything he's said or done in particular that would you know what I'm saying?
Well, in
rise
fact,
to that
Trump,
level.
I've seen articles and heard montages where Trump consistently said, "I am opposed to and condemn white supremacy." That was after the Charlottesville, Virginia, mix-up, and that was media-driven.
There's no history of him being a racist in his career, in his business life. Donald Trump. So, Biden's just trying to stoke racial animus and division. It's shameful, quite frankly. All right, we'll return. Thank you, Fred.
You bet.
So Steve Paisley-Jordahl will be with us in 5 minutes after the news. Thank you for listening to AFR. Stay around.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Hey, have you seen the AFR logo canvas duffel bag? There's plenty of room in the main compartment for big stuff, a front pocket for those smaller items, and a mesh pocket for your water bottle to help you stay hydrated. Double reinforced handles and an adjustable shoulder strap make it easy to carry, and the logo on the side is a great way to let others know about AFR. They're available now at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Steve Pugh. Republican lawmakers are moving to hold President Biden's son in contempt of Congress.
The report from the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees recommends contempt charges against Hunter Biden after he chose not to sit for a closed-door interview with members. The document calls Biden's actions unlawful after he gave a statement on the grounds of the Capitol, saying he would be willing to sit for a public hearing instead. House Republicans wanted the interview as part of their impeachment inquiry into President Biden, where they're trying to learn if he ever benefited from his son's business deals while in office and if those deals influenced the president's decision-making. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
The FAA grounded 171 Boeing 737 MAX planes for safety checks after an explosive decompression forced an emergency landing on an Alaska Airlines flight. Dan Springer describes what happened after the cabin panel was torn from the plane and subsequently located on the ground.
Finding that door plug, it has to be a big help to the NTSB as they try to piece together what caused that blowout in what must have been 16 terrifying minutes until that plane got back on the ground. Investigators spent the day yesterday combing over that Boeing 737 MAX 9 and the 2 feet by 4 feet hole left when the door plug flew off the plane at 16,000 feet elevation. There were 171 passengers on board along with 6 crew members. It was a chaotic scene. The cabin lost pressure, oxygen mask came down, the cockpit door flew open, a boy's shirt was ripped off his body, and cell phones flew out of the plane.
The Political Action Committee is calling on Ohio state legislators to override Governor Mike DeWine's veto of an important transgender bill. Chad Groening has more.
On January 10th, the Ohio legislature will meet and decide if they want to override the veto of HB 68, which would protect children from experimental sex change procedures and hormonal treatments. It would also prevent transgender boys from dominating girls' sports. 23 other states have already passed such protections, along with the U.S. House of Representatives. Jamison Taylor is Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs at AFA Action, the political arm of the American Family Association.
AFA Action is working with members of the Ohio legislature to make sure that they override Governor DeWine's veto. This veto from the governor does not reflect what the people of Ohio want. It does not reflect what the legislature wants. The measures to protect kids from radical transgender policies passed the Ohio legislature by veto-proof margins.
So Taylor says they're hoping the lawmakers in Ohio stand strong to override the governor's veto.
And moving forward, Ohio lawmakers are going to have to work together as a body to push through real conservative policies. Frankly, this is what the Democrats are doing. They're doing it in states like Michigan and Minnesota. They're working lockstep to ram through liberal Democrat policies. We need Republicans and conservatives to stand strong and do the same thing to pass good conservative policies.
I'm Chad Groening.
A new report suggests 1 in 10 Americans has picked up a pricey habit. Therese Crowley explains.
A Bankrate report finds the number of Americans racking up credit card debt to pay for everyday items during the spell of high inflation has surged 10%. 2 years ago, 39% of Americans carried revolving debt month to month. Now it's up to 49%. More than half of them have carried that balance over a year. The most common reasons: unexpected expenses, car and home repairs, medical bills. And the average credit card interest rate, or APR, hit a new record of 20.72 last week. The typical American owes $5,000. At that rate, it would take 279 months to pay off, along with over $8,000 in interest for a payback over 24 years. Therese Crowley, Fox News.
Most of Wall Street is rising today as yields ease in the bond market. The S&P 500 was 0.5% higher today. The Nasdaq Composite was up 1.1%, with big tech stocks leading the way. The Dow was lagging with a loss of 57 points. The government reports on inflation data Thursday. American Family News is available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Pray scripture-based prayers, and God will use you to be a greater blessing because you asked Him to. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, bless me indeed. Expand my territory. Cause your hand to be mightily upon me. Keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. In Jesus' name, amen.
Read the article Kingdom Prayers by Joseph Parker on thestand.net. Thestand.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Monday, January the 8th. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano and now Steve Polka Dot.
Paintball.
Wonder
Jordan with
my Wonder Bread shirt.
Yeah, that is that Wonder Bread shirt you'd like to wear right there with the painted splotches.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Steve, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, life is good in Mississippi.
All right. All right, Steve, what's your first story?
Well, we have some uprising by students, or well, not just students, but a whole bunch of people in New York City and in Seattle.
New York City?
New York City. They have decided to block the entryways. So pro-Palestinian protesters in New York City simultaneously blocked off the Holland Tunnel, the Brooklyn Bridge, and the Manhattan Bridge. And then in Seattle, they blocked I-5 North, or I-5 in Seattle, sitting down in the middle of the freeway. You've seen the videos of this, where protesters sit down in the middle of a roadway and keep people from
They're not helping their cause at all. They're only ticking people off.
And there's been some angry people.
Yeah, you what you're doing? You're not having a they're disrupting people trying to get to the airport a lot.
Right.
That, they want to hold a political rally. You can do that different places. It's free speech all in our country to have rallies and protests and so forth. But you can't get out there and the interstate and block people. People have places to go and things to do, and you're interfering with innocent. I say innocent people. They are innocent people. They're just Americans trying to get around to take care of their daily business. You could even have ambulances.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They need to get to the hospital, and these people are out blocking interstates in the name of the Palestinian cause in Gaza. I just think they're hurting themselves with these kinds of actions.
They have to know. You would think that they have to know that that's not. People aren't going to go, oh, well, I didn't realize until I couldn't get to my doctor's appointment that.
Right.
But I was talking to Ed before we came on the air. Do you ever? The question's been on my mind ever since I was started looking in and studying World War II, because it's a topic of mine that I love, history topic. How in the world did the German people, en masse, all of a sudden, decide that they were anti-Semitic? How did they countenance putting 6 million Jews slaughtered in the Holocaust? And they knew what was going on, and they participated in the persecution. How did that happen? How do you get a whole country to do that? Well, I got a little bit better of an idea now that I've seen our country kind of go down a little bit of the same street. The thousands and thousands of these people that have bought into either they bought into the Palestinian genocide myth, or they just are anti-Semitic. It happens that fast, Ed.
Yeah, and in our discussion, one of the conclusions we came to is that some of this is not really happening all that quickly, but we're finding out suddenly. Okay, there's a difference between a movement or a trend happening quickly and people finding out suddenly, because a lot of these are young people who are taking this pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel / anti-Semitic perspective, and they have been taught this stuff on colleges and universities and even in a lot of our public schools. So that has been going on for a while, but we suddenly discover it after October 7th,
right,
and the terrifying attack on the nation of Israel. In these protests we're talking about was New York City and Seattle here, but it's been going on for weeks. What has been, in general, the police response? Do they just let this go on?
Do not. In fact, somebody noted that the police brought, I think it was in Canada, they brought coffee out to the protesters who were blocking the traffic, and they noted that there was a very significant difference in the way they reacted to these protesters than the way they reacted to the trucker protest over the COVID-19 thing, where they gone over the money. But no, for the most part, police are doing nothing.
And let me tie this to the discussion we had last hour about Tim. You mentioned the immigration crisis now growing up to becoming a top 3, climbing the list, becoming a top 3 issue for a lot of voters. This law and order issue is also growing. Now, I'm just guessing, just from talking to people, but this idea that our country is out of control with regards to law and order, I think, is going to make crime and these kinds of protests and the defund the police, all of that stuff gets thrown in the same basket. And when people see on the news that they can't get to the airport, or they can't get to the hospital, or they can't even get to the grocery store because of these protests, and the police do nothing, in my opinion, there are certain places you should be able to have a spontaneous protest. Maybe that's at City Hall, but you cannot shut down a thoroughfare. If you want to see how quickly the police would respond, let me just get 1,000 Christians and we're going to block the road and set up a place where we can preach the gospel. The police would fly down there. We'd be, water cannons and arrests. The fact that the police are doing nothing to these people when they block a roadway, is shameful. And I'll tell you, if Democratic mayors continue to allow it, this is going to be another issue that climbs that list of importance for voters.
I tell you, Tim, you were talking about how this is not going to help their cause, and I agree with the American people. Those that are already on their side are not. But this is what frustrates and is a little scary to me, is that if you step back and look at what has happened since October 7th, a little bit of the same thing that happened since 9/11 with the Arab population, all of a sudden, Palestinian issue is everywhere, and thousands of people are now on, expressing solidarity. I don't mean this to say it was good, but October 7th might have been the best thing that ever happened to terror. It just, how do you stop that from happening?
I'll never forget Brother Don Wildman, the founder of this ministry, Tim's dad. After 9/11, I remember him saying on the air, he said, "Don't misunderstand me. What happened was terrible, this terrorist attack. But for Muslims in the West, it's going to be the best thing that ever happened for their cause.
Yeah.
Because they are going to be seen, because of all the charges of Islamophobia."
Yeah.
He said, Western governments are going to bend over backwards to make them feel at home. And it has spilled out just exactly as he had predicted. And now you've got entire countries in Europe basically held hostage because they have 4 or 5, in France's case, 10% of the population are Muslim immigrants.
Yeah.
They live in terror of them creating an uprising.
Yeah. I don't know I don't know the solution to that. That's scary.
But to your point about the pro-Palestinian protests, because these protests started almost immediately. It was like one weekend in which everyone was saying, well, this is terrible what happened to Israel, and then it all changed.
Months of, yeah. President Trump is on the campaign trail. You may have seen this. He's an important person. He makes things move and shake, and he even rewrites history to his benefit. It's amazing. I wanted you to hear what he said about the primaries at his during his speech. Remember Iowa? This is him taking credit for Iowa. Let's listen to cut 14.
As you know, by making it first in the nation, I've made Iowa very, very important, and that's the way we're going to keep it.
Mr. President, Iowa's been first in the nation for decades, well before you got into politics.
Well, I looked this up. Iowa was first for Democrats in 1972. It was the first contest for Republicans 4 years later in 1976. So this has been going on for almost 50 years or more.
Sometimes with President Trump, I don't know who's in the editing room for this for him.
In his brain, you mean?
Well, I mean, who lets that kind of video go out where he's claiming that he made Iowa the first? What did he say? First in the nation?
I made it great by making it.
Play it again. It's 5 seconds.
As you know, by making it first in the nation, I've made Iowa very, very important, and that's the way we're going to keep it.
Yeah,
he's saying that he made Iowa the first primary state or caucus state in the nation, and he did it.
And he made it important. Listen, I'm just going to say, I tend to do that kind of thing too. I mean, I've claimed to have invented vanilla ice cream. I mean, I've made those kind of comments before.
It happens.
I have a wife, though, who tells me, no, you didn't. Or, no, you did not remember this anniversary.
You just would have
I have somebody who's editing me.
But you would think when he's recording this that somebody on the other end of the film would say, sir, you didn't make Iowa the first.
Well, that sounds like an off-the-cuff comment. So I'm in defense of his staff. I'm guessing his campaign staff. I'm guessing nobody knew he was going to say that.
Well, they get fired.
Well, maybe.
Well,
you never know what's going to come out of
this. Wrong, you get fired.
You never know what's going to come out of this man.
I don't know. That was bizarre. Anyway,
you want to talk about his continuing to disparage our American veterans, etc.?
Well, this was a story over the weekend. President Trump went to Iowa and gave 2 or 3 speeches, I guess. And you remember the rivalry that he had with the late Senator John McCain, right?
Yep.
Because McCain was he was no fan of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was no fan of McCain.
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So they had an ongoing rivalry, and in fact, that was then candidate Trump said, about John McCain's service in the military, that Trump said, I don't like soldiers who are captured. I like soldiers who aren't captured. It was a dig at
talking about heroes. Yeah.
It was a dig at McCain's prisoner of war status, and so there is a history here. But anyway, this you got the is it you're going to play the clip?
You can.
So listen, as a result of McCain's injuries sustained in the prisoner of war, he couldn't raise his arms above his shoulders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing him in person one time, up fairly close, a few feet away, and his build was, you could tell he had something wrong physically. Talking about John McCain, and McCain was anyway. So what McCain did was McCain killed the overturn of Obamacare. Remember that with the thumbs down,
right?
And made a lot of Republicans, in particular, angry with that move. McCain was, I voted for him. Did you vote for him?
I did.
Well, yeah, when he ran for president.
Yeah.
He was more of a moderate, sometimes liberal Republican. On some things, he was conservative. But anyway, this is what Donald Trump had to say about that situation.
Got 15
over the weekend.
We're going to fight for much better health care than Obamacare. Obamacare is a catastrophe. Nobody talks about it. Without John McCain, we would have had it done. But John McCain, for some reason, couldn't get his arm up that day. Remember? He goes like that. That was the end of that.
So anyway, Senator McCain's daughter, Megan, she took offense to that because she was saying, and a lot of people did, they said Trump is continuing, even though McCain's dead, to make fun of him and the fact that he couldn't raise his arms. So anyway, that happened over the weekend on the campaign trail with President Trump. Ed, what do you think about that?
Well, and the reference, the bill was called the skinny repeal, if you remember.
Yeah.
It repealed parts of Obamacare, but probably would have ended Obamacare. I think that, and the final vote was 49 for and 51 against. The problem was if McCain had voted yes for the skinny repeal, then I can't. I'm trying to recall back there. But listen, you don't. Anyone who has served this country, okay, and done so in an honorable manner, like John McCain. Now, I voted for John McCain, but he was a moderate. He was not on board with a lot of our social issues. In fact, when American Family Association back in 2003, 2004 was pleading with the Republican Party and George Bush to pass a federal marriage amendment, John McCain was one of those who said, this is not a federal issue. This is
not necessary.
It's not necessary. It's a state's issue. The federal government should be involved. If it ever came up, we would then consider it. He was one of those that tanked the efforts to prevent the legalization of same-sex marriage. So when it came to our kinds of issues, he was not on board. But I did vote for him because the alternatives were so bad.
You voted for Sarah Palin. Come on.
Well, no, I'm just saying the alternatives to John McCain were so bad that I did vote for him, even though he was too moderate for my taste. However, he was a heroic prisoner of war. No, I do not think it's right to say, well, he shouldn't have got caught. He shouldn't have been captured. It doesn't matter. He was a prisoner of war and served honorably, and his injuries should not be mocked if that's what the president was doing. And it sounded like that's what he was doing. It sounded like he was mocking the fact that he couldn't raise his hand above his shoulders.
Yeah. Next story, Steve.
All right. Talk about immigration here. I know you guys have been talking a little bit about that, but did you know that the Biden administration has been scaling back the interview process and fast-tracking the release of Chinese illegal immigrants into the United States? This is according to an article in the Daily Caller. They used to have a 40-question screening question about, can you come in? Before they would let them in. They've reduced that to 5, basically opening the door for communist Chinese illegal immigrants to come to the United States. No one's quite sure why they're doing this, but it can't be good. I mean, given the fact that that's probably our number one global foe at this point.
It is, yeah. And, well, you know what? Is it possible that the Chinese government has the material by which they're, holding the Biden administration hostage, with blackmail? I mean, what's behind this kind of thing?
I think they're over here checking on their weather balloons.
That's true. You had a work visa.
So, in other words, the Biden administration, by cutting some of the questions, the majority of the questions, going from 40 to 5 in the interview process, is making it easier for Chinese nationals to come into this country legally. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And by the way, according to the caller, smuggling operations quickly adapted to the new guidelines, coaching Chinese illegal immigrants on how to answer CBP's shorter list of questions.
Yeah, listen, this is when other countries find out you don't mean business on your border, this is what they do. Because Mexico was coaching Mexicans who were coming in illegally on how to circumvent the system. You don't play ball. If you don't play hardball on your border, other countries are going to help people get into the country.
Hey, did you changing the subject matter altogether? Did you guys see this Alaska Airlines plane?
They lost a door or something like that?
Where a window panel came off of the airplane in mid-flight?
Yeah. I did. I saw that, and now nobody was sucked out of the plane, right?
No.
Although my understanding is a child almost got sucked out. But what if it had hit an engine? It would have taken the whole plane down.
I know, but thank the Lord, nobody was hurt. Nobody, as you say, was sucked out of the airplane. But it was a new plane.
737 MAX 9. What was the airplane that they grounded? It was another Boeing MAX. Maybe it was maybe the same plane. Over a navigation thing. This is several years ago. It's just kind of ringing bells in the back of my mind.
J.J. Jasper used to have a joke about how, think about it, we're getting on airplanes that are built by people who was the lowest bidder.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. We need a new fleet of Boeing of planes.
Right.
Yeah, and so whoever can do it for the cheapest amount. I hadn't thought about that.
Anyway, this happened on I don't know where the flight was going from where to where, but anyway, it was Alaska Airlines. But that won't be good for their PR department.
You got to think.
The FAA has grounded more than 170 Boeing 737 MAX 9s after this section of the Alaska Airlines.
Do you think maybe another airline should advertise, maybe Delta or United, just say, listen, one thing we guarantee is you won't be sucked out of our plane.
One of our planes.
You may not be happy that the 300-pound fellow is sitting right beside you, but I guarantee you one thing. You're not going to be sucked out of our planes.
That's right.
Huh?
Yeah,
in fact, we wedge our passengers in so tight. Even if a panel does blow off, you can't be sucked out.
However, you can remedy that if you just go ahead and have a month worth of really big meals. They're giving away free seats now to large passengers.
What?
You haven't heard this?
No.
Yeah, a lot of several airlines, or at least one, is if for oversized passengers, you buy one seat and they will give you enough so that you don't inconvenience other passengers.
Well,
hey, that's why I always try to get that front seat if you can.
Yeah.
Because the one where there's nobody sitting in front of you.
Yes, are you talking about right behind first class?
Row one?
Yep, right.
Yeah.
Yep, right there.
Or the one where you have to promise to rip out the door, the exit.
Yes,
row.
where the flight attendant comes back and asks the six of you, "Are you willing to?" Huh?
Have you ever been? I've been on planes where I can clearly see the six people that are being asked that question.
Yes,
Are
yes.
you willing and able to pull this?
Right.
And you look and you see a little, bless her heart, a little 5 foot tall lady who's skinny as a rail, and I'm thinking, lady, don't tell me you think you can pull that door off. You can't.
Right.
But
so this is
they do ask you. Are you willing to?
Are you? And they say, are you able?
Yeah.
And I go, come on, lady. She's not able. We can all see it.
Southwest Airlines is the airlines with this new customer of size policy, and it is allowing travelers to take up more than one seat to have the additional spaces for free.
Wow, for free?
Yeah.
You mean they're just giving away a second
That's right.
seat?
That's right.
You
Well, because
requested
they
it?
probably would get sued.
Well,
There's a video
that's
here
not
that
gonna-
I'm watching on how to take advantage of it. I haven't watched it, but yeah.
Listen, that's one of those. The airline seats are one of those situations where one size doesn't fit all.
No. And we've all been in the situation where you're looking up the aisle and you're
Here
saying,
it comes.
no, please, no. Not here.
Oh,
all right.
man.
I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, let's stop right there.
And I'm not skinny mini myself,
Yeah.
but I can fit in my seat.
You see, so somebody's looked at you coming down the aisle. Is that what you're saying? Saying, "Oh no."
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ed.
All right.
Thanks to Fred and Brent Creeley, our producer, and thank you for listening today, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Keep listening to AFR. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hope you're going to have a prosperous and healthy 2024. Hey, we're going to Washington, D.C.